Hey, what's up, guys? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. So I'm gonna just jump into it. So, Spanish Civil War, very interesting conflict from 1930 to 1939. There's a whole lot of history and then turmoil that happened well after. I mean, this conflict, not just the war, the Civil War, but the conflicts spread over a very long time. So I picked a Spanish map, probably not the most historically accurate location, but I was looking more for the topography of the country itself. So, jumping in. I will be flying against the Spanish Republicans, as they fight against the fascistic Spanish nationalists. So I'll be flying against the Skilvan Ace of an I-16 Type-5 from 1935 with those colors. He will be flying at a height of 400 meters with a speed of 200 kilometers an hour. So pretty simple. And then hopping over to my side, this is actually probably the most interesting part about the whole Civil War conflict. So I'll be flying as a Spanish nationalist. This was an interesting part because you'll see the aircraft I'll be flying is a Messerschmitt Bf-109. Well, that's weird. That's a German aircraft. Well, that's because Hitler actually used basically Spain's turmoil as a way to almost like a scrimmage. If you're ever playing sports, it's not like an official game, right? But you go against the other team to kind of see how your team's doing, and it's kind of this sort of friendly thing and not necessarily fully competitive, right? So this is kind of what Hitler did with the, sticking his foot in the door and being like, hey, let's try out some aircraft. So he tried out the 109 to see if he actually liked it, and then figured out its faults and all the stuff. And then by the time he invaded Poland, he knew how to use aircraft, and he's figured out his tactics. So this was huge, at least for the air war for Germany, at least from the fighter pilot perspective, even with Luftwaffe pilots being present during the conflict. So I'll be flying. Let me go back. Yeah, so I'll have a starting speed of 200 kilometers an hour with a height of 400 meters. So that's my, so we'll both start on the same altitude and same speed, level playing field. And that's really basically it. So I'll be flying as the be playing as a Spanish nationalist versus the Republic, and the history is actually super neat. Didn't know a whole lot about it, and I did some research, and there's some awesome YouTube videos that kind of break it down. So if you're ever interested, like, just literally give it a Google, YouTube search, and it's actually really neat history, and it's something other than just war from 1940 to 1945. It's something different and a conflict that not at least the average person knows about. So I was like, this is super interesting. So I did this sort of combat scenario about it because I thought it was cool. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, round one, here we go. So due to this being a 109B, it is significantly different than, let's say, the later E models, F, G, K, like completely different. And that's because of the time it was manufactured and made. Of course, the E3 was made in 1939. This was a aircraft from 1937, I believe. So the difference is actually a lot bigger than you would think, due to the fact that there's no cannons, just two 7.92s. Decent amount of ammo, of course. The engine, it's not fuel injection. If you do negative G maneuvers, it will shut off, stutter, hutter, essentially. So right here, I'm looking at more of a head-on situation, which is very ignorant of me, not, of course, forgetting that the I-16 has a lot of front guns, and while they're not high caliber, they are mean if they hit you in one spot. So we do a pretty passive merge right here. It was very close, it was very tight, but he wasn't being very aggressive until the merge completed. So I turn around on him, hoping to get a shot, and I completely overshoot as he tries to regain the fight, as I roll for some reason like this and allow him on my 6. It was not smart of me. Of course, I'm pulling, trying to get him off, almost crashing right here, is able to recover, and I'm just frantically checking my 6, trying not to die, because I just realized my massive mistake, allowing an I-16 on my tail, especially flying an early, even pre-World War II vehicle. So he gets his nose right there, but I think he was a little high, so he wasn't able to get his gun. And then, bam, I crash right here, but he crashes. So he wasn't able to get his guns on me, We both crash due to just low stall speed and turning, so that's a draw. Alright, round 2. I was very lucky that I survived, or at least ended up in a draw with round 1. Now, at this point, I'm considering my options, especially since I'm fighting with a I-16, something that can easily outturn me, though I might be able to slightly outclimb it in certain circumstances. But mostly we're on equal playing field even with climbing, even though this is a 109. So I'm slowly gaining altitude right here, managing my speed, but ultimately I want to have more energy, therefore I need to get more altitude, so whenever I fight my opponent, I'm better off. Well, I start climbing right here, fire off my guns because I don't know why, but the I-16 pops out right there. I didn't figure it would be right there, so I start basically diving down like an idiot, and I'm trying to bait it into a head-on. I don't know why, but I fire some rounds, he rolls, and now we're in a head-on situation. He just nails me right in the engine, and my engine just shut off, and there's nothing I can do. Maybe I could roll around, but look how easily he turns back around and just lights me up, shoots up my canopy, injures my pilot, hitting him in the leg. I'm thinking, well, I just lost round 2, but I just belly land it, because even though he still wins the round, you always want your pilot to survive at least. So I force land it right here, thinking I'm an idiot, kick up my canopy, and my pilot starts running. So round 2 goes to him. Alright, round 3. I-16 2, Ace 1. If he wins this next round, I lose. If I lose this round, I lose. Completely and entirely, because it's 3-2-1. And that's not something I want. And if you can look at the runtime, you obviously know the results. But I start climbing right here, mostly being conservative with my speed, but I'm not as concerned with it. I'm mostly just concerned about gaining altitude, because that's something I can use and abuse with the 109 that the I-16 cannot. And being higher than the opponent is always more favorable. You always want the high ground, because you can kind of dictate the fight, especially if you maintain your energy. Well, I start kind of getting my nose more oriented, trying to observe the I-16, trying to figure out what can I do from here. So I start diving down on him, as his nose is not really towards me, and that very soon changes as we get into a head-on situation. He fires his rounds and misses, and I fire my rounds and I hit him. He doesn't hit me at all. So I'm thinking, Ace, you learned what happened last time. Why'd you try that again? And honestly, I couldn't give you an answer. So I'm just very relieved that my gamble paid off, as now I have a good amount of energy, still have a decent altitude level, and I'm just slowly gaining on this I-16, and I can catch up and light him up, as long as I don't overshoot. So kind of get my gun sight ready, and I'm ready to pull up and light him up. But he turns right here, and I don't know what happens to his aircraft, but he just completely he stalls and starts just spinning. I fire at him, of course, and he recovers right here, but he's so low to the ground that staying alive is impossible. He crashes into the ground and dies. So now it's 2-2. We are now tied. Let's see what happens. Alright, round 4. This one decides. Since we're 2-2, we can't have a round 5. This round ultimately decides who wins and who loses. So it's kind of tense for me, especially since I don't want to have another loss after flying against the Ki-27 while I flew the P-40. This match seems a lot more fair, honestly, since they're both relatively on the same playing field, whereas the Ki-27 and the P-40 are vastly different aircraft that have to be controlled completely differently and those outcomes can be random. Whereas this one, well, this one can be random. It feels a lot more fair. So I start climbing up more because I'm thinking that the gamble will pay off in the long run, since it proved in the previous round, even though it was ignorance and arrogance on my part to behave the way I did, it paid off. So I'm going to keep an eye on the I-16 as he stays low. He stays low as I climb in altitude. Of course, he has a lot of energy due to his dive, but I have a lot more potential energy due to me climbing in altitude. So he pulls up immediately, and we get into this head-on situation, and I start firing. And I don't even use the gun sight, I just start shooting. And I hit him, and he hits me. I'm thinking we're going to head on, but we don't. We actually just merge safely, relatively. Of course, we did just shoot at each other. And my engine's still alive. I'm still flying. As he just smashes into the ground. I must have hit something important. I must have killed the pilot. I can't really say for certain, but he's dead, and I'm alive. Now, I do have massive damage to my aircraft, but I'm still in the air. I didn't bail out. I stayed up in the air for a lot longer period just to make sure. He dies, I'm alive, and according to the rules, that means I win the round. So let's see who the winner is. I won. I actually won. I was genuinely shocked. So, I had that draw on round 1. Okay, it's better than a loss. And then round 2, I lose bad. I mean, that was 100% on me. Pilot error completely. Round 3, I got lucky. I mean, I got stupid lucky. And then round 4, that was also luck too. Honestly, that was a really, really good pilot I fought against. And I can only say luck because while I am decent with the 109, and I'm getting better with it, and I fly it a lot more than any other aircraft in this game, if I was flying the I-16, I would have dominated. And that's having little to no experience with the I-16, because 1, I understand the faults of the aircraft of the 109, and 2, I was flying a very early version, which blocks me from doing a lot of stuff that I usually do. I usually fly the E3, E4, sometimes later World War II models as well, and not even comparable. The B is not even comparable to the other models, even though there might only be a 3 to 4 year, sometimes even 2 year gap between the models and the variants. But all I can say is that this was such a satisfying win after completely botching the Flying Tigers video. So I'm just so happy that I won. And it wasn't a 5-round ordeal, it was 4. Now, I haven't seen, a short round like that. So, super, super thankful for that. So, hope y'all enjoyed today's video and me getting another dub. So, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you on the next one. So, have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.